Hello pretty peoples, KawaJapa no Dolly desu. Today we are going to talk about Japanese homestay and how to use it to improve your Japanese. I believe in immersion. I believe the best way to learn is to immerse yourself in the language, and I think going to Japan is a reasonably good way to do Japanese immersion. Now, you may be thinking that that is a gross understatement. Surely going to Japan is the way to do Japanese immersion. Well, it isn't necessarily that simple. It's quite possible to go to Japan and find yourself trapped in an English language bubble, and once you're in it, it can be hard to get out of it, and then, from a language point of view, you might as well not have gone to Japan. Whether you're going for a year or more, or just a week or so, I recommend Homestay. If you go to an apartment or a hotel, you will have a base where you probably won't use very much Japanese at all. If you stay in a shared house, which is cheaper than apartments and hotels and about the same as a reasonably priced homestay, well, if you go to a shared house where everyone is Japanese except you, that's great. But you will need a pretty good level of Japanese to get by. If you go to a shared house where there are foreigners, you will almost certainly find that they are talking English all the time, even if the foreigners are French and German and Czech, and up to half the residents are Japanese. Those Japanese will be people who are comfortable with foreigners, and all of them will be talking the common language, English. So avoid it like the plague. If you can find a shared house where the foreigners are Koreans or Chinese, then very likely they will use Japanese as their means of daily communication, but that may be difficult to find. So I think the best option is homestay, but you must choose the right homestay. How do you do that? Well, it starts with the first step. You go to a homestay website and you look at the self-introductions by all the families there. And the first and most obvious tip is this. If someone is saying, I want to practice my English, or I'm very interested in English, cross them off the list right away. Why? Because if you go to that house and don't speak English with them, you're not being fair to them. And if you do, you're not being fair to you. You didn't go to Japan to speak English. Now also, use a little due diligence and notice if they mention their children and they give them all English-sounding names like Karen. That may not be their real name, it may be a sort of nickname, but that shows that they are very, very interested in English, and it's not an encouraging sign. Conversely, if you see people whose English is very, very poor, or looks as if it's been passed through Google Translate, that is a very good sign. These people are probably more comfortable speaking Japanese. So if you stay with them, they will be getting what they want, which is some money and interaction with foreigners in a language that they feel comfortable with, and you will be getting what you want, which is Japanese interaction. Now, a lot of the families are going to fall between these two extremes, and a very important tip here is that when you reply to their listing, and they will list themselves in English almost all the time, because English is the international language and they want people to be able to read it, you should reply in Japanese. Why? Well, in the first place, if you start off the relationship in English, it can be very difficult to claw it back later and turn it into Japanese. Secondly, you are giving a very strong indication that the language you are going to be using is Japanese. Now, if they like that, it will improve their chances of accepting you, and if they don't like it, they will pass you over, and that's what you want them to do. Now, you may not feel comfortable enough in Japanese to make all the arrangements in that language, and if you don't, what I recommend is that you write first in Japanese and then put an English translation, which gives priority to Japanese at least. And also, if it were me, I would write everything in Japanese and only translate the most practical parts, like when you're coming, how long you intend to stay for, how much the cost will be, and things like that. I would only translate the parts that actually will cause a disaster if they're misunderstood. All the friendly chatty bits and self-introduction, leave them in Japanese. Another alternative is to write your reply and post it to one of these native correction sites like Lang8 and allow some native speakers to correct it for you so that you know you've got it all right before you send it. Now, another consideration is what part of Japan are you going to go to? To some extent, this may be constrained by where you can find something affordable, but I would consider this. Tokyo is the biggest city in the world. It has lots of interesting things in it. You might want to go to Akihabara, for example. There are lots of things you may want to do in Tokyo, but it's a big city. People are very busy. They often don't have time to interact. Tokyo is full of foreigners. When I'm out and about in Tokyo, I may see 5 or 6 foreigners in every crowd. In many other parts of Japan, I don't see a foreigner for a week. This matters because people are geared to dealing with foreigners. They may start speaking in English the minute they see your face. The announcements on the trains and things will be in English as well as Japanese. Once you get out of the big city, the English falls away and you find yourself in a more Japanese environment. Now this leads us into other questions about how you immerse in Japanese once you get there, but that's another topic and I'll deal with that another time. Next week, I'll be starting my from-scratch Japanese lessons, and even if you're not learning Japanese from scratch, I think you'll find them very useful because they allow you to review Japanese from the ground up the way it would be taught if it were taught properly, as if it were Japanese. This is organic Japanese, which will help you to think in Japanese and help you with your immersion. If you want to learn some kanji to get started, may I recommend my book Alice in Kanjiland, which teaches all the basic JLPT N5 kanji the organic way and as part of an adventure. Thank you for listening to this little talk. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.